The style rules assignment can be kind of a difficult one, so I wanted to offer a few tips on how to succeed at this assignment and in both the rule and the essay. The first step in succeeding with this assignment is that you've actually got to read the books. And I know that this is probably kind of a given for all kinds of different classes, but I'm serious about this. You really have to read through these books, and that can be kind of difficult because these aren't the kind of books that you read from beginning to end. I mean, they're both style manuals of different sorts, and they don't necessarily lend themselves to the same kind of reading as, say, a novel or something. But you really do have to sit down and start from the beginning and go work your way all the way through the end of these books. No skimming, no skipping around, no thumbing through, no just looking stuff up. If you don't read carefully, you will not do well on the assignment. That's just a given. Now, as far as the books themselves, the Elements of Style is easy reading. I think that no one will have any problems finishing reading that entire book in an afternoon at best. Style, Clarity, and Grace, however, is quite a bit more difficult, quite a bit more challenging, and so you should budget your time accordingly. As far as the strategies for how to read these things, don't read the books just to figure out what the rules are. Read the books to figure out what the rules mean. Think about this as if it were like a literature class. In a literature class, when you read things, you sort of scratch beneath the surface. You dig into the text to figure out larger meanings. I mean, we don't read Hamlet just for the plot. It's not like we say, well, in a literature class at least, it's not like we say, well, Hamlet's about this guy whose dad gets killed, and the dad comes back to him as a ghost and says, hey, the dude that married your mom is the one who killed me, and I want you to revenge me. And Hamlet's like, oh, I don't know. Should I kill him or not? I don't know what to do. And so, like, let's have a play. We'll try to trick him, and it turns out he's poisoned, and then everybody dies at the end. You don't. That's not how we talk about Hamlet. That's certainly part of how you talk about Hamlet in a literature class, but more likely you're talking about what does the play Hamlet mean. Maybe you talk about it in terms of a historic context. Where was Shakespeare coming from when he wrote this play? Maybe you talk about it in terms of sanity and insanity. This is one of the great themes of Hamlet. Is he crazy or is he pretending to be crazy? Maybe you talk about the meta-theatrical elements, the play within a play. Maybe you talk about the sort of poetic use of language throughout the play. Maybe you talk about the Oedipal complex because of Hamlet and Hamlet's mother have this sort of strange kind of relationship. The point being, though, is that when you talk about Hamlet in a literature class, you scratch beneath the surface. You come up with different interpretations about its significance. So that's what we're doing here. This is not just about what the rules are. It's a question of what do these rules mean? And why these particular rules? Why is it that Strunk and White settle on the rules that they settle on? Why is it that Williams goes into the sort of detail that he goes into with his sort of rules? How are these? Why do they do the things that they did? Now, in terms of your particular rule and your essay about it, first you want to have one and only one rule. What I mean by this is that you don't want to have a rule where you explain about, say, punctuation of some sort, and then a rule explains about sentence structure, or that about, strong verbs or something like that. It's got to have one rule that you're going to follow through on. More specific your rule is, the better it's going to work. If you have a rule, for example, that talks about having characters and actions close together in sentences, or about how to control length in a sentence or something like that, that's going to work a lot better than a rule like write clearly, because write clearly is too big and amorphous of a rule. You need to explain your rule in your essay as well as on the class wiki. In other words, imagine an essay that you're going to hand in that's completely separate from the wiki. So on the wiki, you're going to have a rule that you explain with your examples, but then when you hand in the essay for the class, you're going to have to re-explain that rule again in your essay. Assume an audience that's not familiar with these books. In other words, if someone came across your essay on the internet, knowing nothing about the assignment and knowing nothing about the books, what sort of things would you need to tell them? You're probably going to have to provide, for example, some basic summary about these books so that your readers can follow along. Be sure to quote and paraphrase in the books to support your points, because what you're trying to do here is you're trying to make an argument about what your rule means and how you came up with it and its significance, and drawing some comparisons between Strunk and White and Williams is the way to go about doing that. And of course, you need to do that by quoting and paraphrasing from the books. You need to have a works cited page. And finally, don't break your own rule. It's kind of funny in a not a necessarily funny way, but ironic way, when somebody has a rule about how it's really bad to have incomplete sentences and comma splices, and then the essay that they write has a lot of incomplete sentences and comma splices. So be sure not to do that. Okay, let's dive into the assignment.